what is a Jewish boy doing in a Catholic school? I actually went to a Catholic school called Bishop Gorman. That's like a top 10 high school football team in the country. There, you had to wear cross on your shirt. So at 16 and a half, being the football star, and I started off drinking once a week. The drinking turned into smoking, which turned into a drug addiction. One night, it was August 25th, 2015. I had my gun, I had a ski mask, and I robbed 7 convenience stores.
How long were you sentenced for?
For 8 years.
Wow.
It's a very dangerous place. You're surrounded by every single gang possible. So I was looking through the Aleph magazine, talking about Yom Kippur coming up, and you have to fast. So I fast for the first time. After the fast, there's Nazis in the prison too. He comes up to me with the swastika tattooed on his head. He sees me eating a pork and cheese bowl, and he says to me, "I don't understand you Jews. You fast and you pray, but you eat non-kosher." And when he said this to me, something like, I was like, whoa, like, I'm a Jew. You know, now I'm praying 3 times a day with a minion in prison. You know, Rubashkin would teach a Tanya class. He comes up to me and he says, you know, we're in the same housing unit. We should learn together. Doing every single day, we learn Chumash with Rashi and Rambam. That's how my Torah learning started with Rabbi Rubashkin, right?
Wow. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Meaningful People podcast. This week, we sat down with Shawn Balva, and oh boy, does he have a story from a place called prison. How Shawn found God in prison, literally, began to become from, how he met Shalom Mordechai Rubashkin there and started learning about Charusa. But you'll hear a lot about that in this episode. I don't want to ruin it for you. I want to say, by the way, if you're listening to this episode, if you know Meaningful Minute, we have a new program that we are launching this weekend, which is called The Forgotten Survivor. It's sponsored by our friends, the Newman family. Isaac Newman, you may have known him, has sponsored many of these episodes. Lili Nishmas' mother, Rachel and Paramakalea. It's speaking to Holocaust survivors about their siblings, family members who they may have lost that people don't know about. And their legacy should live on forever. And especially now what's going on in the world, it seems like people forgot about what these survivors went through. So we are highlighting many of these stories. You can find these videos on our Instagram, on our WhatsApp. The links are below in the description, the show notes. We want to thank the Newman family for sponsoring this program. So I wanted to give you a heads up about that. But you're going to really enjoy this episode of Meaningful People. I know it. It is really, really deep. It's a long episode, so stick through it to the end. I think you'll enjoy it. And I really, really am looking forward to your feedback, to hear what you think about it. So please leave a comment below. I go through every comment. I love seeing your comments. This episode is sponsored by our friends at Alpert and Associates. You know that. They are the premier place, the only place, the best place to go to when it comes to financial planning, life insurance, estate planning, whatever it may be. You want to go to Alpert and Associates. You're going to give them a call at 718-644-1594. He's been getting a lot of phone calls, and he's been making a lot of people very, very happy with the work he and his team are doing. I myself use him for a bunch of stuff, and I think that you can benefit financially, have all your ducks in order by calling Moshe Alpert, or you can email him at alpertmoshe@gmail.com today. You are going to be happy about that. But until then, I hope you enjoy this episode of the Meaningful People podcast. You are listening to the Meaningful People podcast.
The podcast featuring our nation's most impactful, influential,
and meaningful people. We're joined today by Shawn Balva.
Shawn!
How
are you doing?
All the way from
Good.
Vegas.
Baruch Hashem.
Legit.
Yes.
From Las Vegas. Thank you so much for joining
Nevada.
us.
From Nevada.
Yes.
Nevada.
Yeah.
Yes, did I say?
Las Vegas, Nevada.
That's where it's at.
We expand the lens.
We expand. Oh yeah,
We expand the lens.
expand the lens 100%.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. You have quite the story.
Yes.
You know, very excited to unpack it here on this podcast. So I guess take it away from the start.
Yes.
Tell us about your life.
Yes. So I was born in Englewood, New Jersey, to a Sephardic father. He's Israeli, born in Israel. Ashkenazi mother. She was born here in New York. The age of 5, that's when I ended up moving to Las Vegas with my family. This is where, you know, I ended up, my parents got divorced. So I was living in a single parent home.
Mm-hmm.
And at this time, this is where I started to, you know, develop like a lot of anxiety, a lot of trauma just from the living in a divorce home. You know, so, you could see with my story over here that, when you have trauma, anxiety, stuff like this happens. So at the age of 9 years old, that's when I found something that I really loved. And to help with my anxiety, this was football. I became a very good football player. I was very talented. And this is something that I ended up doing from age 9 until 18. This was my love, my passion,
outlet.
my outlet. Nice. Exactly. And it was something that, it really kept me strong, and I had a great support system with my coaches, with the parents, with my mom. She was like my biggest cheerleader, with the football. So
I heard you were really good.
Yeah, I was pretty good. I put in a lot of effort into it, a lot of work into it.
And like for all the Jews listening, it's not flag football.
Yeah, what was that?
Not flag football.
Yeah, no,
full
not
contact.
Full contact pads and
helmets.
I took a lot of hits. What
position did you play?
I played quarterback.
Nice.
Come on, he got that quarterback build. Do you think he's an offensive lineman?
For those listening.
Quarterback.
Quarterback.
But yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
But at that point, you weren't religious. You were playing, I imagine, on
Not at all.
Saturdays and everything.
Playing on Saturdays. Judaism was not a thought in my upbringing. Not a thought.
Had no part of it.
No mention of Hashem. In fact, I was almost turned off by it. I would go sometimes for the holidays, Rosh Hashanah, to the temple, because my dad being Israeli, he's traditional. He would bring me to the important days for the holidays. But it was something, like I said, I was completely turned off by it. I would go in there, put a kippah on, and when I got out, I couldn't wait to take the kippah off. I couldn't wait to just go back to my regular non-Jewish lifestyle because it wasn't something that, was anything to me at the time. Football was my everything.
I want to highlight just for those that just think that it's like a throwaway comment that you were really good at football.
Yes.
I want to just like really amplify that reality. My understanding is that like Randall Cunningham was like a pro quarterback.
Yes.
Like spotted you.
Yes.
And like slotted you to like go pro.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. So I met Randall Cunningham when I was about 13 years old. I played against his son, and he was the coach of his son's team. And he spotted me, and he saw that I was very talented, very skilled. And he
he doesn't know who Randall Cunningham is, by the way. You might want to. I'm kidding.
Actually, don't.
I'm the guy that pulled out the football reference.
Yeah.
I don't know who Randall Cunningham is.
Legit?
No, you do?
Yes.
He was ex
before my time.
Eagles. Yeah, he used to play in the 80s and 90s, I believe.
Well, I was born in '85.
Yeah.
So were you, Sean?
Yeah.
Oh, he's from the all-time classics.
Yeah, he's a classic. I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer, but he's up there. He's definitely up there.
I heard of him.
You know Jalen Hurts is?
If I heard of him, he's legit.
You know Jalen Hurts is?
No.
Aaron Rodgers.
Him I heard of.
Oh, wow.
Because he had some crazy contract thing, right?
An injury?
Yeah, like he signed a contract and then like...
You're such a lawyer. I can't. Talk about the contracts with you guys.
That's funny. Yeah,
but that's really cool. Like,
yes.
for someone who, again, you did not identify with Judaism at all, you're playing football, the aspiration is to go pro.
For sure.
That's
for
really,
sure.
Yeah. So
that's the complete aspiration. And when I met Randall Cunningham, he took me to the next level. When you train with a professional athlete, ex-professional athlete like that, they take you to the complete next level. And just knowing that he told me that I had the opportunity to go pro, it made me feel good, but it showed me that I do have this opportunity, and I took it very serious,
So you imagine you doubled down.
I doubled down big time.
You threw yourself into football.
Yes, I ate, slept, and breathed football. Starting, and then I went to high school. I went to a big high school to play over there.
We're in Vegas.
Yes, I actually went to a Catholic school, which is very interesting.
It shows how much you were not at all in tune with the Judaism.
Not at all, because if you want to in Vegas, if you want to play on a good team, and if you want to get recruited by the college coaches, you have to go to this Catholic school called Bishop Gorman. That's like a top 10 high school football team in the country. So that's where I decided to go.
Nice.
I want to open a parentheses really quick.
Oh, that's early.
And just highlight how not everyone can go pro.
Yeah.
Football. It's just a fact, like a statistical fact, right? You could really want to, you could really love football. You could have like a tremendous drive, but there's just some raw talent and capability that people like Randall Cunningham can spot. They can see it, but not everyone has it, right? And clearly you do. And what's cool when I hear that is shifting the context for a second. the Rambam writes that every person can become a Moshe Rabbeinu.
Wow.
Right? Which means that every neshama, every chelik alakami mal mamish can get as close to the Eibishter as Moshe Rabbeinu was. And we all have that inborn, innate capability. And you don't need some like professional rabbi to spot that and to know that. But when Randall Cunningham told you, dude, you could go pro, that activated something in you that like, wow, I legit have something. I have an asset that if I just develop it and cultivate it and let it become what it can become, then you believed in that. And we all have that asset.
Yes.
We all can mamish be as close to the Eibishter as Moshe Rabbeinu was.
For sure.
Just not in football.
Yeah.
And that's why it's also so important for everybody, parents and rabbis to, really bring that out of the kids. You know what I mean? To tell them how special they are, constantly, to show them you're a champ, that you can be that Moshe Rabbeinu, because with Randall Cunningham, that's what he did for me. He showed me that I could be that professional football player, So
you're playing for a Christian.
Close parentheses, sorry.
You're playing for a Christian high school.
Catholic at first.
Yeah.
I actually went to another Christian high school for the last 3 years of high school. But over there, you had to wear cross on your shirt once a week. It's you have to go to services.
Really?
Yeah.
So was that something that anyone had any opposition to in your family, or?
So yeah, my father, he was very upset with that. He was like, how could you send our kid to a Catholic school, Christian school? We're Jewish. But me not caring about the religion and my mom not really caring too much either, just wanted to see me grow in football, we said, forget about it. It doesn't matter if we're at a Catholic school, Christian, Jewish, it doesn't matter. Our mission is to make it to the next level in football. So that's where we're going to go. And, we had, the rabbi who did my bar mitzvah out there, he would tell my mom too, what is a Jewish boy doing in a Catholic school? It's crazy, looking back at it. But
you had a bar mitzvah,
yes.
Was that something that you? I'm just trying to bridge the gap between you not wanting anything to do with Judaism and not having much about Judaism in your upbringing to, you had a bar mitzvah.
Yes. So that was the only thing that I really did as far as Judaism goes growing up. When I hit 13, my dad, he was, again, because he's from Israel, it's very important for him to do traditional things. And he argued heavily with my mom about this because really at the time, I didn't care about getting a bar mitzvah. And my mom, she didn't really mind if I got one either. But my dad, he pushed me very hard to get a bar mitzvah. So we got it. We did it very quickly. We didn't even do a party. It was just
like ceremoniously.
The ceremony and back to regular life. That's how it was. Yeah.
Well, good for him.
Yes.
Good for him that he wanted that.
And that's another thing. He pushed a bar mitzvah, and he also pushed to always marry a Jewish girl. That's something he constantly told me. And he was always saying, Bezrat Hashem, Baruch Hashem, looking back
lingo,
at it. Yeah.
The language.
Definitely.
What was the next step, I guess, in your journey?
So the next step, I'm playing at these Catholic and Christian high schools. I'm doing very well. And, I'm on the way to becoming a collegiate athlete and on the way to becoming a pro. At 16 and a half years old, this is where my whole life flipped upside down. As I said before, I had a lot of anxiety growing up. I had some traumatic experiences, not having, just being in a single parent home. Thank God nothing happened to me so serious. It just, it happens to a kid, right? Like this. So at 16 and a half, being the football star, being the popular kid in high school, and just like it is in Judaism, when you're a stronger individual, your Yetzer Hara is stronger too. So just being, having so much success as a high schooler, you get a lot of the bad kids want to bring you down too, right? They're the cool kids per se, So they would invite me to parties and stuff like that, and I ended up going, and I started off drinking once a week. The drinking turned into smoking marijuana every week. And then it turned into a full-blown daily activity where I have this drug habit, which turned into a drug addiction. Right. So
at a young age.
And by the time I'm 18 years old, so I'm still playing football. I'm functioning as a football player, but I'm daily doing drugs.
Wow.
Yes.
I imagine the football, like it was always your priority, but it can't possibly be at the forefront if you're struggling with some serious addiction.
And I was mistaken. I thought it was at the forefront, and I didn't perform as well as I could. I was still performing well, but I could have done much better.
Right.
You know, and on top of that too, I'm the quarterback of the team. I'm the leader. You know, so the way that the quarterback is, he's the example to the whole team. You know, so I was affecting the whole team. I just didn't see it. You know, so.
Did any of your parents, coaches, any of them pick up on what was going on with you?
They all tried. They saw it. My mom, I killed my mom. I gave her so much stress. You know, she's wondering constantly, every night, is my son going to come home? Is he going to be safe? You know, my coaches, they're constantly telling me, you know, Shawn, they do drug testing here. You can get kicked off the football team, which ultimately happened my senior year. Everybody was trying to get me on the right path, but I just wasn't listening to anybody, you know.
Wow.
I just, you know, I was reinforced, you know, you're doing the drugs and you're playing well doing football. So it's like, why stop? You know what I mean? I was reinforced to keep doing what I was going to do.
And it must be tough. Like you mentioned for your mom, she's sacrificing quite a bit to enable you to pursue this dream.
Yes.
And, you know, even in the minimal role that, you know, a Jewish school might have with her, in her neshama, she knows that the sacrifice of going to a Catholic school or a Christian school in pursuit of this dream, it's a decision to do what's in your best interest, to help you realize this dream, and then to see that being compromised for something that you're struggling with, that must be so difficult for a mother to see.
It was heartbreaking because my goal was her goal, you know? So to see, you know, after so many years of putting in so much time and effort, so much training into this thing that I loved, and now he's ruining it, for her to see that, it's heartbreaking, you know? And then not only that, like I said before, she's wondering if I'm going to come home in the morning, if I'm going to not be alive, overdose, you know, whatever it may be. Will I be in jail? You know, so I made her sick, you know, so I'm making up for it now.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that you came to a point where senior year, you got thrown off the team.
Yes. So my junior year, I got in trouble for drinking at a party. The coaches found out somehow, so they suspended me the first 2 games of my senior year, and 2 suspensions, you're out. Right, so that was my first suspension.
And senior year is important. Like
senior year is very important. That's where you're
getting scholarships.
This was everything. I was getting looked at by Oregon, Harvard. At the time, that was only 2 teams looking at me.
Oregon's a really big football, very, very big football team.
Yes, big for Division I. And so my senior year comes. I'm out the first 2 games. I come back for the next 3 games, and I had stats off the chains. So I had, like, if anybody knows about football stats, I had 11 touchdowns in 3 games. I had like over 1,000 yards passing. I had a couple rushing touchdowns, and I was just doing so well, you know.
Not gonna want to throw a little T4 in there.
It's pretty good.
And I forgot,
translation from Momo.
Good.
Strong stats.
Yeah. I forgot to mention too, which is very important in my story and my journey, is that before that first game that I came back from my senior year, the first time ever in my life, I prayed to Hashem.
Wow.
I didn't call him Hashem at the time. I prayed to God at the time. And I don't know where it came from. I got on my knees and I prayed to God on one knee, like we used to do for football. And I prayed to God out of nowhere. I said, God, let me play good this year. Let me play good this year, and I'll stay away from the drugs. Right? And I don't know where that prayer came from, right? I just felt somewhere just out of nowhere that I needed to do that, right? So I always say that he kept up his part of the deal. I had an amazing 3 weeks, but something crazy happened. The 3rd game, Thursday night, so we used to play Friday Night Lights. The Thursday before that 3rd game, a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to do drugs, right? And not realizing that I was a drug addict at the time, it was too strong for me, that question, to say no, right? So I went out, I did some drugs with my friend. The next morning, I'm in class, right? Somebody comes to the class, like the principal's assistant, it's a student, and they asked me to come to the front office, right? And they randomly drug tested me that morning. So I prayed to God, let me have an amazing season and I'll stay away from the drugs. That Thursday I did drugs. That Friday morning they drug tested me.
Well, you know, I mean, you knew you had one strike against you. Were you not concerned or worried that was?
So I just figured it was a Thursday night. I mean, random drug test, you might never get a drug test in your whole high school career.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm the quarterback. Why would they do that? You know, like.
Also, a night before a game?
The night before a game, it just didn't.
There's also a certain invincibility.
Yeah.
When someone is at the top of the food chain in any ecosystem.
Exactly.
Right? But you're the quarterback.
Yes.
You're the star quarterback of the school's football team. There's a certain invincibility that comes with that role, with like that big man on campus.
Yeah. So yeah, it just did not worry me one bit. And it really bit me in the butt. I mean, I was shocked when they told me I had a random drug test. And I just knew my career was over right there. I knew it. So I went and took the drug test. That Friday game, I had a horrible game. I threw an interception like the first drive. It was a terrible game. And then after, they actually took me out in the middle and put in another quarterback. That's how bad it was. My mind was so messed up. And after the game, I have a coach in here that I talk about, Corky. He asked me, he's like, Balva, what are you on? He thought I was on drugs during the game. And I told him, Coach, I got drug tested. And he knew what that meant. He's someone who knew me personally. And a few days later, they called me to the office over there and they told me, you know, your career here is over. And that was it. Wow. And that's when I really went downhill after that. That's, you know, I was devastated. My mom was devastated. I was devastated. The players, all my teammates were saying, you ruined my season, you know, my receivers. You know, they're saying there's no quarterback to throw to me now. You know, it was horrible. The parents were upset. Everybody was. It was a big blow.
Your world was kind of caving in.
Yes, it caved in. And at the time, I'm 17 years old. I don't know how to deal with this. As an adult, you have to know, okay, what's next? You know, we could fix this problem. We can maybe go to a different high school, or we can go to a different, a lower level college and work our way up, right? But I didn't know this at the time. Right. So I turned right back to drugs, and not just small stuff. I went all the way in. I was dabbling with everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, it's remarkable as I hear you painting that picture.
Yes.
The amount of responsibility on a young man of 17 years old to have so much riding on your shoulders, where a mistake that, as you mentioned, can be corrected.
Yes.
Can be course corrected. But there's so much on you and so many people that are relying on you.
Yes.
So many different parties that are investing in you.
Yes.
And it's a very large responsibility for a young man.
It's a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
You didn't just let yourself down. You let down a lot of people.
A lot of people. Yeah.
How do you come back from that?
I didn't. And that's the problem. That's where everything really, like I said, went downhill. Because, you know, and the funny thing is, when you make mistakes like that, in that type of life, in a football life, nobody's really there to pick you up. You know, you get, by the parents, the coaches, they don't look at you the same after that. You know, there's no...
They write you off.
They write you off. There's not like in Judaism where you have the Aleph Institute come visit prisoners in prison. You're like ostracized.
Wow.
You know, you're kicked out of the community, you know? So, you know, I would go to the games and, you know, nobody would look at me, the players, the coaches, the people in the stands. And I would just stop going to the games because, you know, it was embarrassing. It was shameful, you know? And, you know, I just, like I said, so that's another thing that made me really go downhill. This is when I, you know, really spiraled.
Yeah. What did that, I guess at that point you're 17, 18 years old. What did that spiral look like?
So the spiral, it consisted mostly of doing drugs every day from the minute that I wake up in the morning till I go to sleep at night. I picked up a new habit too, which was stealing. I became a full-time criminal where I'm stealing constantly. Wherever I went, I was no longer a societal member. You know, I'm not, you know, now that football is gone, your fulfillment is gone. You know, I replaced it with the criminal activity.
Wow.
So I'm stealing and doing drugs until 20 years old. That's what my days consisted of.
Wow.
Yes.
That probably didn't feel good though.
Not at all, because I would steal, and because I'm not a bad person, I have a good heart, I have a Jewish neshama, I felt horrible about it. So what did I do? I took drugs to numb that pain. And then the pain of numbing that pain gets worse and worse and worse. You're spiraling all the way down every single day.
All the while your mother's seeing this happen.
She's sick. She's trying to get me into a rehab. She's having rabbis come over, put the filling on me, try to talk some sense into me. She's doing everything that she can, calling old coaches from back in the day, try to call Randall Cunningham, whatever she could do. This is her full-time job now, making sure that her son, comes back.
We'll be right back to this episode of the Meaningful People podcast. First, a word from our friends at Town Appliance. Hey, you know what time of year it is? Well, Black Friday is coming up, and Town Appliance has some special sales. We're talking about saving 35% on some of your purchases, even more, 38%. Like, you could be saving that on a refrigerator, but there's so much you could be doing through Town Appliance. Head to their website, townappliance.com. Like, I'm looking at a GE appliance right now, literally 45% off. It was $730. For Black Friday, it's going to be $399. Now, if you are one of those people that enjoys a sale, then you are going to enjoy this time of year, especially with Town Appliance. Head to townappliance.com, or you can message them on WhatsApp. Hit the link in the show notes and description of this episode. Like I mentioned so many times, they are the number one place when it comes to all appliances. Ever since 1979, they've been serving the Jewish community and beyond, and it's time that you become familiar with their customer service. You are going to really, really be happy with the way they work with you, how quick they work, and I myself have a very, very positive experience with them, and I'm sure you will too. So make sure to reach them at townappliance.com or hit the link in the show notes in the description. Enjoy the rest of this episode.
I want to zero in on something that you said. You said even in the midst of this, lifestyle of criminal activity and using different substances to escape the shame of the criminal activity.
Yes.
And you said so innocently, I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
And that is so absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
That the lie that we tell ourselves is that we become the bad act that we do, and that feeds the shame.
Yeah.
And there's no way that you're sitting here today without that truth being the deepest truth of all. That even in the midst of all the craziness, at your core, you are a chelek l'kami mal mamish,
for sure,
and you're a piece of godliness, and you're a good guy in just a really tough spot. And it reminds me, a friend of mine from North Woodmere, Moshe Ament, sent me an awesome clip of there was a criminal who his MO was stealing cars. That was his thing. But he had this inyan that it's the craziest thing ever. He once stole a car, and he saw there was a baby in the back seat.
Wow.
And like, it was a hot day, and this baby's life's in danger.
It's kidnapping, yeah.
So he steals a car, and he's making his getaway, and he sees there's a baby that's like on the brink of like a health crisis.
Yeah.
So he rushes the baby to the hospital.
Wow.
And he drops off the baby, and the story goes on and on.
I mean, the baby was in the car.
The baby was in the car that he stole.
I mean, it was...
The parents left the baby in the car.
So they're erroneous also.
So yeah, but he saves the baby's life.
Oh.
And he brings the baby to the hospital, and they start celebrating him like he's the greatest guy of all time.
Pulls away in a Mercedes-Benz.
No jokes. And they invite him for Shabbos, and they're celebrating him. He's saved, and they're making a kiddush and a Suda Saidah.
Wow.
And it finally gets them. He's like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I stole the car. Right? So the insight that they offered to him, they said to him, what is it about you? There must be something that you merited to save a kid's life in the midst of your criminal activity. Like, what's going on? Like, tell us more about you so we can get a glimpse into why, of all the criminals, you were zoche to save a kid's life.
Right.
Right? So he says, listen, I don't know, but I can tell you that within my MO, one of the things, Israeli guy, and he said, one of my things was, before I steal a car, I look in the glove compartment and I check what type of insurance coverage does the owner of this car have. And if they have a certain type of coverage that will pay for the car, like replacement cost,
he'll take it.
I'll steal it. But if they don't have sufficient coverage and this is going to be like really, really bad for the owners, I move on. I find another car.
That's so twisted.
And maybe in the merit of that care and concern.
He's a caring criminal.
Correct. Because inside that criminal, you know what there is? There's a really good guy.
For sure.
And that's what you had in yourself.
Yeah. And I always felt that something different was inside. Just being surrounded in the Goyish world. I didn't, fit in with other kids. So I always felt something. Like I said, I didn't feel like a bad person. I just feel like my actions were bad.
And those actions, they accelerated. They took an increase. It wasn't just then stealing. It wasn't just the drugs. It became more and more and more. And imagine until it reached the boiling point.
Yes. So at this point, 20 years old. Like I said, I'm a full-time thief, full-time drug addict. Every second of the day, 24/7. And this is when I even started to support my habit by selling drugs too, right? So I'm thieving, drug dealing, and doing drugs, right? Drug dealing, it's a very dangerous business, right? So this is when I bought a weapon to protect myself. I bought a gun to protect myself. And now I'm full-time with a gun on me, right? The problem is that the drugs that I was on, it's the concoction and the mixture of these drugs makes you do things that are way out of character, right? So one night, it was August 25th, 2015. I had my gun, I had a ski mask, and I robbed 7 convenience stores in one night.
With a gun?
With a gun, yes. And
I mean, you held up the
armed robbery.
Armed robbery. You held them up at gunpoint.
Yes. So now I'm driving back. I'm driving home after committing these crimes, and a cop car pulls up behind me. He follows me for about 5 minutes, and he pulls me over finally, and I'm surrounded by a lot of cop cars. They tell me, I put it in the book in the beginning, take the keys out of the ignition, throw them out of the car on a loudspeaker. They said it to me. I did exactly what they asked me to. They cuffed me. They put me in the back of a cop car, and that's where they drove me and booked me. To the jail.
You didn't resist that.
I did not resist. I was completely compliant with them. I was very nervous, because you don't want to play around with the cops. It never, as long as you comply, they're pretty respectful to you. So they were respectful to me because I was respectful to them.
7 convenience stores, at gunpoint. Do you remember much of, I guess, during that spree? Was there anything, was it the fear on the faces of the people that you were robbing? Was it any interactions that took place that you remember?
Not really. It was really all a fog, because on that night I was on 5 different drugs. That's where it got to that point of my addiction where I was literally mixing 5 different drugs. So the whole night was a fog. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember. I remember doing it, but I don't remember any details. I just remember sitting.
It's like an out of body.
Exactly.
And you were more or less calm when you got pulled over?
Yeah, I was calm.
And you knew what this meant. Yeah,
I knew what this meant. I remember sitting in the back of the cop car, handcuffed, and I asked the cop as he's driving me, I asked him, am I going to prison? Am I going to be okay? I asked him, and he said, like in a non-caring way, he was like, you'll be all right, and they drove me off, and that's where the journey started.
Man, wow. So you get to I guess
So I get to a jail. They put you in a holding cell. You're with about 20 other guys. It's a very small room, right? There's like a toilet for 20 guys in there. I sat there for about 25 hours. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't use the bathroom because it's very embarrassing with other guys over there. It was a mess. I couldn't believe I was there. The people that I was surrounded by, I could not believe it. Going from this football star to where I'm sitting right now. And so after 24 hours in the holding cell, they take me to
You're also coming down from whatever influence you were
so
under.
Now I'm really understanding my situation. You know what I mean? But it was too much. I was too intoxicated. But now I'm fully understanding where I'm at. I get taken away from the holding cell. Now I'm put in a dorm with a couple hundred other guys over there. And this is also very nerve-wracking too, because, you know, you get guys who are staring at you, testing for weakness. And, you know, it's like a jungle over there. You know, you never know what could happen to you. There's a lot of predators over there. So this is where I'm at. And I spent 2.5 weeks over there until I was released on bond.
So you were awaiting like a judge sentencing? Or?
Yes. So I was awaiting sentencing. Sentencing takes a long time. It actually took about a year for me to get sentenced.
So what's going on in that in the interim? So you got released on bonds? Are you able to go home?
Yeah. So I was released on house arrest. I had to put an ankle monitor on me. I was made to go to a rehab for 30 days, right? So I went to the rehab. I did very well, you know, and I'm clean for 30 days, right? But my addiction picked back up while I was on the house arrest. I ended up drinking every single night that I was on house arrest. I couldn't handle the thoughts of what I was facing.
Right.
They were telling me I was facing maybe 50 years in prison as a 20-year-old kid. So I just couldn't handle it. I'm drinking every night. I'm very stressed out about the situation. And it got really bad again at that point.
Did you ever violate that?
No. So I dodged so many bullets over there because they come and they breathalyze you and they do drug tests over there. And I dodged many bullets over there. And it got to one point where my mom, she said to me that, you know, we can't do this anymore. You need to turn yourself in, right? So I ended up turning myself in to the jail where I would await sentencing over there.
Wow. So you reported to to prison and didn't wait out the house arrest.
No.
Wow.
So
I was going to ask you
yes.
how the relationship with your mom was during that.
So it was when I first got out, it got better because she saw that I went to rehab, that I was clean, and I started to regain her trust. Obviously, she was very nervous for me, but when I started to drink every single day again, she was very upset with me to the point where she actually, like I said, she put me back for my own good into the jail.
I find it to be so interesting that like that's how the system works, where you commit the crime and then they're like, okay, you're gonna go home now for a year, and we're gonna monitor you with an ankle, and then you could do all the work to rectify your behavior. You went to rehab, and then they're gonna sentence you. Yep. It's like you technically could have resolved those demons, those addictions. Sure. Obviously, in your case, that wasn't necessarily the case. You went back to prison. Is that at that point, did they sentence you then, or?
So they put me back May of 2016. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sentenced until September.
So from May to September, you're there in a cell.
I was stuck there, yeah.
Okay.
I was stuck. But I did start my time. You start your time even before you get sentenced, right?
Okay.
So I'm sitting there, and ironically, I even picked up a drug habit in the jail too. They bring drugs in the jail. Other inmates, the officers sometimes. It's a whole corrupt system.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough. Doesn't really sound such like a correction facility.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's what it's all about, rehabilitation and correction, but it's more like warehousing people,
Yeah.
So yeah, I picked up the drug habit over there, and it's now I'm at an all-time low at that point, doing drugs in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2017 sentencing time.
Yes. So I was sentenced 2016.
Okay.
And
how long were you sentenced for?
For 8 years.
Wow.
Yes.
And you're 20 years old.
20 years old, 8 years. I was 21 at the time of the sentencing. But they sentenced me to 8 years, right? So I'll tell you a story. When I got back from the sentencing, I got in trouble by the officers. They caught me doing drugs over there.
After the sentencing?
After the sentencing. I planned in my head, okay, I'm going to do 8 years in prison. I don't know how I'm going to handle this sober. I'm going to have to do drugs throughout the sentence, right? So I was caught by an officer doing drugs over there. And I knew I was going to get in trouble for sure. Like, they'll write you up, meaning you could add more time to your sentence, whatever it may be, right? But, Hashem really saved me over there. And that night, I was shipped out of the jail that I was in to a prison in California. and I dodged that whole bullet of getting in trouble over there, right?
For that, yeah.
Yes. So that night that I got in trouble and I shipped out to prison, I haven't touched a drug since.
Wow.
I've been completely clean and sober since.
Well, what caused that? Because I feel like there's so many different times in your life where
yes,
where
I
had the
just keep coming
opportunity to
back.
make that decision. But like, why then?
I felt at that point that my luck had just ran out. Like, I just told myself, like, how low am I gonna get?
Doesn't sound like you had too much luck.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what's next?
Yeah.
Really, what is next
Yeah.
for me after this? It was, so I told myself, I had a new beginning, starting in a new prison. I told myself, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this to my family anymore. You know, if not me, my mom at least do this for my mom and my dad, you know? So that's how I felt. And I haven't touched anything.
Were you present at the sentencing?
Yes. So I was present over
when you
there.
heard the judge hand down 8 years.
Yes.
What was that reaction like?
I'll be honest with you. I was prepared for it. I already knew I was going to get between 7 and 13 years in prison. So I was kind of happy that it was 8. It was the low end. But I was truly prepared for it. You know, I was ready to go on that journey. You know, I was ready. And, you know, it's my whole family was there at the sentencing. I got to say goodbye to my grandmother. She was like 85 at the time. They let me grab her hand and say goodbye. She was crying. My mom was crying. Everybody was messed up. I wasn't crying. I was just ready. I was really ready for what was ever next ahead. Yeah.
It's incredible how it's striking to me as you describe the will to start over.
Yes.
And that renewed sense of I can start from the beginning.
Yes.
Set in the context of a new jail.
Yes.
Which tells me that the surrounding circumstances matter much less than the internal resolve to start anew, one day at a time, in this new circumstance.
For sure. And
people typically don't associate a new, fresh beginning with a jail cell.
Yeah.
And for you,
definitely.
that shift in context from one prison to a jail in California, I think you said.
Yes.
That could provide that resolve that I'm going to start now anew. I'm going to start fresh. And one day at a time, I don't need this anymore.
Yes, definitely.
It's incredible.
Yep.
Unreal.
Yes.
So, I mean, at that point, you're going to prison for 8 years. Was that, you mentioned you were able to grab your grandmother's hand. Was that the last time that you?
So, Baruch Hashem, I got to see her when I got out.
Nice.
She lived for another 2 months after I got out. It was almost as if she was like waiting
to see you.
Yeah.
Wow. So she lived through those 8 years.
Yes.
Wow.
And she passed away at 92. So I was always very nervous
that
she wouldn't be there when I got out. But she was there, Baruch Hashem.
So you go to prison and you're not in it now for a month, 2 months, 5 months, 6 months. You're there for 8 years. So what's that like?
So this is when it starts to get good. This is when it's and I forgot to mention quickly, when I was in the jail before going to the prison, I fasted for the first time in my life, Yom Kippur.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
I was looking through the Aleph magazine Liberator that they used to send to the prisoners over there. And I had a thought in my head that if I was going to live a normal societal life, it would have to include Judaism somehow. I don't know where these thoughts came from, but it was from my neshama, exactly. And so it says over there to say the Shema in the morning and the Shema at night, and I'm like, what are they even talking about over here? I had no clue.
You know what Shema was.
I had no clue what anything was.
Wow.
So I go to where they're talking about Yom Kippur coming up, and you have to fast. So I'm like, okay, this is something that I can understand this concept. I just have to not eat or drink for 25 hours, right? So I fast for the first time, Yom Kippur, 2016. After the fast, I sit down to eat a pork and cheese, like nacho bowl, right? And there's Nazis in the prison too, and they make it clear because they tattoo it on their faces and their heads. He comes up to me with the swastika tattooed on his head. He sees me eating a pork and cheese bowl, and he says to me, I don't understand you Jews. You fast and you pray, but you eat non-kosher. And when he said this to me, something like, I was like, whoa, like I'm a Jew, right? And I didn't immediately stop eating, and I didn't immediately say, oh my gosh, I have to change my life right now. But that thing that he said to me, it struck so deeply, and I knew that a change was imminent, right?
Wow.
So that happened a couple weeks before getting sent out to the prison, right, in California. So now I go to my prison in California, Victorville, California, and it's a very dangerous place. You're surrounded by every single gang possible. You have the Mexican gangs, the black gangs, the white gangs, Native American, like I said, every gang possible, the Chinese, everything out there.
And you were like unaffiliated.
I was unaffiliated.
You were the Shawn gang.
Yeah, exactly. But the interesting thing with prison politics, especially on the West Coast, is that you have to be with somebody. You don't have to be a gang member, but you have to be with the whites, or you have to be with the blacks, or you have to be with the Mexicans. So a Jewish inmate,
there's no like no man's land.
Yeah, there's it does not work like that. The politics are very strong over there. So being a Jewish inmate, the way it works,
independent is not an option.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
I want to be an independent for a minute.
Yeah,
I'm guessing was there a Jewish crew?
No, not in California.
Oh man.
So I had to be with the whites, right? And it doesn't mean that I have to be so connected with them throughout the day. It just means that if there's like a riot or something like that, you have to be ready to help the whites, right? So, I was hoping, B'ezrat Hashem, there's nothing that would happen, right? So there was a chaplain over there, a lady, who told me, there's Jewish services over here. A couple guys show up. One of them wasn't really Jewish. One of them is actually Jewish. You should go Saturday morning.
She's like, he's not really Jewish?
Yeah. So we have something.
She's like, he thinks he's Jewish?
Yeah.
Don't tell him, though. He's not really Jewish.
First name is Christian.
Yeah. We have something, we call them the grape juice Jews. These are the guys, they go just for the grape juice and the challah. Right?
Nice.
So I went Saturday morning over there to the service, and I walk into the service. There's an African-American man praying. He has tattoos everywhere. He has a tattoo under his eye, covering a gang tattoo that says a deer on it, mighty. And I see him praying in a talit. And I'm like, what is going on over here? Like, I don't know anything about Judaism. I see an African-American guy, he's praying. And he's praying like with a lot of kavanah, right? So I go up to him, I introduce myself. He's like reluctant to meet me because the grape juice Jews over there's a lot of insincerity. So I introduce myself, and he sees that I'm really Jewish, after a few minutes of talking. He tells me he's 40 years old. He's been in prison for 21 years already. They gave him a 56-year sentence at the age of 17 or 18. I don't remember. And he's been practicing Judaism for the past 14 years.
Wow.
Was he a ger, or is he born?
So he wasn't a ger. He wasn't, he knew a lot about the religion, but he wasn't able to get a mikvah in the prison, right? And this is an active gang member who turned Jewish.
Wow.
Right? And Baruch Hashem, he was released from prison last year after 30 years.
Did he find that mikvah?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't been able to get in contact with it. Hopefully, because this person is so instrumental for my journey. I mean,
dude, you know, there's like a challenge culture here. I have a challenge for you.
Why is that?
My challenge for you is to look up this guy.
Get in touch with him.
So I looked him up. I know where he's at, but you're not.
Are you allowed to?
That's the thing.
Convicts are not allowed to.
Yes, felons on probation are not allowed to. Communicate with each other.
So I formally retract the challenge. Formally take that back.
You tried to get you tried to set him up.
Try to get
Rodius.
Momo's an arc.
Rodius.
Momo could reach out to him for you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so this person, he did something for me what no other rabbi could do. Because I mentioned before how my mom, when she was trying to help me, she would bring rabbis over to try to put tefillin on me. And I just wanted no part of it. Judaism, right? And now that I, had that fasting incident with Yom Kippur, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about Judaism, and I glorified the gang life, now that this person is put in front of me, he starts to tell me, you need to eat kosher. You need to start putting on tefillin. And I'm like, okay. So I listen to him. He explains to me the laws of kosher. I don't know if he knew everything about it, but he explained to me the OU or the Circle K. So I would start eating kosher. And he said, I have tefillin. I'll give you mine every morning. You can put it on. Wow. I started putting his tefillin on every morning, right? Until mine would come in the mail. You're allowed to have religious items over there. So this is where my journey to Judaism really started.
In California.
In California. And when I look at this person, he's a cool guy. He's a gang member.
He's legit.
He's legit, yeah. And I'm like, okay, Judaism can be cool also, right? So now I have this thirst to learn what it is to become an Orthodox Jew and what it is to learn about Judaism and Torah. Still not understanding these concepts, right? So he wasn't able to help me out as much as I needed because of prison politics. You're not allowed to be with another race for too long. You're not allowed to communicate with other races. I would only see him mostly on Shabbat, Friday night, and in the morning. It wasn't a lot of time though. So I would call my mom and I would say, Mom, I need a rabbi. I need somebody to explain to me how to grow, right? And she's, she got me a halacha book, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the Sephardic edition. So I start to see over there how to pray. So I'm in my own way praying.
Good choice, by the way.
Yes.
Sephardic.
Yeah.
Rice on Pesach. You did it.
Yes.
You did it good.
Yes. So I'm learning how to pray Shacharis, Mincha, and Marv on my own, in my own way. And I'm seeing over there that you have to cover a toilet when you're praying. And since we have a toilet in our room, I would cover it. I'm slowly getting into it, right? Getting into the religion, but it's not enough. And when you're completely on your own in the beginning of this process, it's very difficult to make things happen, to grow, right? In the proper way.
We'll be right back to this episode. But first, a word from our friends at Collars & Co. So it's that season, boys. It's that season, where a lot of us are wearing sweaters, maybe sweatshirts, but that doesn't look too corporate. It doesn't look too great. You can't only just walk in wearing sweaters or sweatshirts. How great will it be if you could wear a shirt underneath that has a strong, nice collar, but it's super comfortable? It doesn't feel like you're wearing a shirt that's restricting you. It's almost like feeling a t-shirt. Yes, that's what you can get at collarsandco.com. They have the most amazing shirts. I literally, anytime you see me on camera, I was by the Washington rally this week and Collars & Co. And people stop me is that a Collars & Co shirt? I said, you bet it is. It is a Collars & Co shirt. And that's why you need to head to collarsandco.com. Make sure to order today. Use promo code meaningful for 15% off your purchase. It looks great. It feels great. You're going to be confident. You're going to look good. It's going to feel good. And do I need any more reasons for ordering Collars & Co? I don't think so. So head to collarsandco.com.
Can I just parenthetically insert how millions of people are learning and keeping halacha?
Yes.
So few of them are bringing light through the halacha that you need to cover a toilet when davening. How many people
literally
have the opportunity
to
learn that halacha and actually put it into practice?
You may have been the only one that week that was able to do that mitzvah.
Right?
Yes.
In the entire Jewish world.
That's interesting. I never thought about that.
That's the inyan of being malani tzotzis, right? When we uplift the sparks through the light of the Torah, you took something, you took a halacha and you brought it to the lowest place, and you did it in a way that millions of frum Jews that have been practicing Judaism their entire life never thought of and never did.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's
and you covered the toilet so that you could daven.
Yeah. Mine's is Yaakov Cruz in Alaska. He kept Shabbos. There was no other frum Jews where he kept Shabbos for 3 days because of the sun, whatever. What you did is crazy.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. So I would ask my mom, she would come to visit me, and she would tell me there's this prison in New York called Otisville, right? There's this guy over there, Rubashkin. He's in there. He'll bring you under his wing. I hear they do Shabbos. They learn Torah over there. They have a minyan every day. And she's like, you should try to get over there. And I was like, no, it's too cold. It's too far away. She wouldn't be able to visit me. My parents wouldn't be able to visit my brothers. So I put it off. I said
they were still in Nevada.
I was still in California.
No, but your family was still.
Yes, they were still in Nevada.
Yeah.
And I put it off, and I said, you know what? I'll just I'll figure out how to learn about Judaism here on my own, right? But an incident happened in Victorville, like a violent incident that I went through. I was basically part of a program called Brave, where they help these young kids get their attitude right so that their actions are in place and are correct. One morning, the lady who ran the program, she turned off all the TVs in the unit where the programs run at, where there's about 150 other inmates. And the inmates took this as like a disrespect, right? And it's all about respect to the inmate code, right? So they decided collectively, all the 150 inmates, that she disrespected them, and that the next morning for the program, we would boycott the whole program. Everyone's walking out during the program. I decided that that was a bad idea. I felt like we would get in trouble for this. So I decided to stay. 150 inmates went and I stayed, me and a couple other guys, right?
It's a risky move.
And I didn't understand the risk at the time. So when they all came back to the unit, they were all written up, meaning their time can be taken away, added more time to their sentence. I wasn't written up, but according to them, I was written up, right? I broke the inmate code.
Which can be more dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Than the prisons.
So they told me for what I did, not following them against the guards, they wanted to beat me up. And when they beat a person up in a prison, they send them to the hospital half dead, literally. So they wanted to beat me up, but they told me since I'm like a rookie, that I'm young, they would just give me a discipline. And discipline means that two guys, you stand with your arms up like this, and two guys punch you in the stomach for 23 seconds.
23 seconds.
What's the significance?
Pretty
so
exact.
23 is W in the alphabet. White, like the
Wow.
Yeah. So they have this whole crazy.
It's like a
code.
gematria.
Yeah, exactly. The gematria for the whites. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
So for 23 seconds, that was
They're
the longest.
They're very from.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, 23 seconds. They're just pounding away at your stomach, right? And then after that, that's when I called up my mom and I was like, maybe we should try out Otisville.
How about that How about that Otisville? I
Yeah.
can handle the cold weather.
So I didn't tell her what happened because if I said something over the phone,
She got nervous, yeah.
she would get nervous, but also the guards hear everything that you're saying, you know? So, and that's something also in prison. You try to, if something happens to you, you don't want to, you keep it on the down low because then it could cause more problems from the inmates. Right. So that's when I called my mom and said, yeah, let's go to Otisville.
Wow. So
yes.
it's also striking to me, of course, that beating was what you needed for that next step in your journey. And that's a theme that comes up often here. Mm-hmm. But I want to highlight a different aspect of it, not just the beating, but the fortitude that you needed to stay in that room, which ultimately led to that beating.
Yes.
But the fortitude to sort of do the right thing, that no, I'm not going to boycott this program.
Yes.
And I'm going to stand my ground and I'm going to stay here because that seems to be the right thing to do right now.
Yes.
That was your guiding light to get you
for sure
to your next station.
And I was ready to go with them. I was thinking that morning, you know what, maybe I should just go. But something told me to stay.
There's that something again.
And
there's that neshama talking
and
to you.
And if I went, Otisville was out of the picture. Because if you're written up, transfers are out of the picture.
Wow.
So that was very important for me to stay over there. So, I asked my mom to, help me get there. She got in touch with the Aleph Institute, and the Aleph Institute's amazing. They literally got me out of the California prison in like less than a month.
Wow.
I was gone. And that's like a record time, especially going from West Coast to the East Coast. It doesn't happen. So when I heard that I was going to Otisville, I was ecstatic. I couldn't believe it. I was so happy for, this journey that was ahead. So they put me on a plane. It's called Con Air. They put about like 150 other inmates on a plane. You're shackled by the ankles and by your wrists. 150 other inmates. It's crazy. And
Con Air.
A lot of people don't know about that, but it's a real thing. They take you to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I mean, think about how do you transport criminals from?
Yeah, Nicolas Cage helps a lot of people know what it is.
Exactly. So they took me to Oklahoma City.
I mean,
yes. So they took me to Oklahoma City. That's where they have like a a jail specifically for transferring inmates back and forth on the plane. So I spent 2 weeks over there, took another plane to Brooklyn, where I spent another 2 weeks in the detention center here in Brooklyn. And after that, that's when I went to Otisville.
Seems like nothing is simple. Like there's no like, oh, you're going to Otisville, straight to Otisville.
I'll be honest with you.
Why? Why can't they gotta stop like 4 times?
It's crazy. When I was during the transfer, I was almost wishing I never left.
Wow.
Because it was so bad. The transfer, 4 weeks being in transit in a jail is the worst.
It's a 5-hour flight.
Yeah.
You know, like what's
like
up with
this? You can't move, no bathroom, anything. It's insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
They finally get to Otisville.
So I finally get to Otisville, and it was like a breath of fresh air, because Otisville, they have grass over there, where most prisons is all dirt. It's all like how you see it in the movies. It's very sad and depressing. Otisville, grass, you know, it like there's trees, there's flowers planted over there. It's already so much better.
There's multiple parts. Like there's the camp in Otisville,
yes.
and then there's but you weren't in the camp.
No, so I was in the medium. I was in the medium.
Right. So that's medium
yes.
security. That's not like, you know, people know like, you know, Trump's attorney, Michael Cohen, was playing tennis in prison. That's not the Otisville that you were.
It's still prison. It's still like you feel it, you know, even though it was nice looking on the outside, in the inside, at the core of it, you're still an inmate, and it's still prison.
And that's where Rubashkin was.
Yes, that's where Rubashkin was at. So that's when, so I got to my housing unit. I met another Jewish inmate, and at the time I wasn't wearing a kippah or tzitzit, right? I met a Jewish guy, and that's where he told me Rubashkin lives in this unit. You want to go meet him, right? And I was wowed, you know, that he was, first of all, he was in the same unit that I was in, that I would be living in, because there's 5 different housing units. And, you know, my mom used to just tell me so many good things about him. So I was just so happy, right? So I go and meet Rubashkin, and he had, in this dark place, he had an aura of light. His energy was shining.
Wow.
With his emunah and betachon, like you could feel it. And when I saw him, it was such an image for me to see this person. He's smiling at me, he's so happy just to see another Jew. Yeah. He takes me into his room. We put on tefillin. We say the Shema, because I didn't put it on that day. That's another thing. During my transit, I didn't miss one day of tefillin. That's all thanks to the Aleph Institute.
Wow, that's incredible. And we had Rabbi Aaron Lipsker on this podcast, and I feel like since then we have multiple guests who speak about what they do and how incredible it is, and just like hats off to them.
Yes,
really,
definitely. The Aleph Institute, amazing what they do. Very amazing.
Or hats on.
Hats on.
You know what I'm saying? Like the yarmulke on.
Is that a bad joke?
Very deep.
Yeah.
It's a reference to a different episode. I hope this airs after that one. Otherwise, it won't be funny at all.
The real fans will get it.
Yes.
So you got to meet Rubashkin.
I met Rubashkin.
Can I just point something out
Yes.
that's like so cool for me? So those people that are listening to this that are not in prison right now is going to make up like the vast majority of the demographic.
Like vast.
Yeah,
Yes.
like extraordinarily vast majority of the people listening to this right now are not going to be in prison. And there's going to be someone in their life who they can pursue to seek out some of that light that you described in that jail cell that was coming off of Shalom Mordechai Rubashkin.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone has a Rebbe or a teacher or some woman who they look up to. And there's going to be someone in their life that they can access to seek out some of that light. And all they have to do is do that. Pick up the phone, get in the car, go to that shiur, go to that school, whatever they need to do. And you were sitting in a jail cell in California, and you went through the arduous process of transferring literally across the country to seek out a little bit of light.
Yes.
Ashrecha.
It's amazing. And I used to remember when I was in the California prison, I would pray with so much like sincerity to be able to grow in Judaism. I wanted it so badly, right? And it just shows how Hashem, when he sees how sincere you are, he will open the craziest doors for you. He'll send you to Rubashkin in 2 seconds.
Amazing.
Just like that.
It's amazing.
So for me,
But
I was in shock. Yes.
Sometimes you got to get beaten up to get
Yeah,
there.
exactly. You got to go through something for that.
Yeah.
It comes at a cost, but it's worth it for
100%.
sure.
And you know, the 23, I hit 23 times.
Yeah.
The gematria of R, light.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I have no idea.
Raish is already at 200.
That's funny.
Rodius.
Yeah.
Rodius.
What's 23? Come on, give me something.
It's 23. What is a gematria to 23?
Come on,
Chaf
Momo.
Gimel.
You're
I don't know. I don't
Chag?
know. No. It's a chesed.
You said, what do you say?
What?
What did you say? You said Chaf Gimel. Oh, my
Chaf
bad.
Gimel, yeah.
Chag, just
Chag.
not that one.
Yeah. So
We'll think about it.
So yeah, I met Rubashkin, and then I met all the guys there. At the time that I was there, it was like stepping into yeshiva. There was probably 15 frum Jews over there, religious Jews there, including Rubashkin. There was a few other rabbis. Rabbi Mordechai Rubashkin was there from Satmar. There's younger people, 30s and 40s, who were also very religious. So for me, stepping into this and seeing this, I was so happy. Now I'm praying 3 times a day with a minion in prison. It was unbelievable, and it was going so fast, and I had to learn how to go at their speed. I started learning, Rubashkin would teach a Tanya class every Tuesday and Thursday, so I would go to this.
Unbelievable.
I started learning Hebrew. I started learning Aramaic, and I was very drawn to Rubashkin, right? As everybody was over there. He was somebody that everybody just wanted to be around him, right? So I wanted to ask him to teach me. I wanted to ask him to be my teacher. But I saw how busy he was. This man, from the minute that he woke up, I think it was like 5:30 in the morning till he went to sleep at night, he was praying, he was studying, writing emails on the phone. This was like the busiest man in the world over there, right? So I wanted to learn with him, but I was like very shy. I didn't want to go and take him away from anything. So I didn't even ask him to learn with me. The next day, he comes up to me and he says, we're in the same housing unit. We should learn together. So I was like, wow. So we started doing every single day, even on Shabbos too, every day. We learn Chumash with Rashi and Rambam. That's how my Torah learning started with Rabbi Rubashkin, right? So we're learning every day about 30, 45 minutes because he's very busy. And those 30 to 45 minutes every day for me, it was the foundation.
Did you feel like you were in prison when you were learning?
No. When I was with him, I was so happy. And I would tell him, and he would laugh at me. I'm like, I'm so happy right now. And he would be like, what do you mean you're happy? We're in prison. And I'm like, but it felt so good to be, what my soul was really missing. All those years, I was finally getting it, and at a high level too. And not only what he was teaching me, just being around a person like that and listening to how he speaks, how he says with a 27-year sentence, saying every day we can go home at any second. Just being around that person and learning emunah and bitachon. Wow. Yes.
I've heard people describe the condition of being in the throes of an addiction as shackles and being stuck.
Yes.
And the environment of active addiction is very prison-like.
Yes.
And it's very striking to hear you describe this liberating feeling that a person can be running around as a quote-unquote free man, but living in the shackles and the prison of an addiction, and then to finally be liberated in a jail cell.
For sure.
With the light of the Torah, with the practice of Yiddishkeit, and to be learning and to be growing, and that internal liberation to be happening while externally being confined. It's like olam hafach reisi. It's like it's an upside down world. It's amazing.
So they say in Pirkei Avot, "Ein ben chorin ela mi she'osek b'Torah." A person's not truly free unless he's involved in the Torah. So I understood that completely. I learned a lot about what it is to be in captivity and what that does for the neshama. You could get like upset about that. You could get down and not have faith in Hashem that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, because look, I'm in this horrible situation. But if you have good thoughts and you realize, wow, like my body is imprisoned, but my soul has the opportunity to grow so much. So that's where that happiness I learned, that's where it came from.
That's really special.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like we've heard so much, and I interviewed Rubashkin, and we've heard so much from so many different people about the things he would say, but nobody from who had spent time with him in there, maybe visitors, but you spent time with him
experience
in there, and you've seen it. And it's so funny because you're saying like the same things, like that's how you see the MS. Like it was really like not just on a day when he had a visitor and he was on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, but he wasn't there so much longer as I as I heard.
So I was with him for almost 4 months. We were studying every single day. A week before Hanukkah, and if I don't have it wrong, his appeal was denied. So that means you're finished. The rest of your life you're spending in prison. That's it. That's what the prison system said to him. He never believed that though, right? So during
Did he ever talk to you about that? All
the time, to everybody. He would constantly tell us that we can go home any second. Everything is from Hashem. He didn't believe in 1 second in the prison system or the court system. He believed he's exactly where he's supposed to be because Hashem put him there. And he would talk to me constantly about that, and to everybody. So that week of Hanukkah, after being denied his appeal, he's dancing like he just won the Super Bowl, like for Hanukkah, singing the songs over there, lighting the candles, looking at it for half an hour, making sure everything is by the halakha, just being normal, a regular Jewish person, right? And he's arguing with the guys over there, saying that we can go home any day, and other guys are like, oh, it's not that practical, it's not realistic. So it was the last day of Hanukkah. I don't remember which day of the week it was, but it was the last day, 3:00 in the afternoon. We finished, I think we were praying mincha as a group. And Rubashkin and I, we would learn at like 5 or 6 o'clock every night. He told me at 3:00 before we went to lock in for our daily prison count. They count the whole prison, all the inmates. He said, I'll see you afterwards and we'll study, right? So I went into my cell. I went and took a nap. I'm going to go study later on. I get out. I go to his cell, and it looked like it was ransacked. It looked like it was a mess over there, right? And I'm like, I don't see him in there. And everyone starts to say, Rubashkin went home. Rubashkin went home. And it was the craziest thing ever, And then, we saw on the TVs, on the news, that everybody's dancing, celebrating Rubashkin. I think in Spain, they were talking, like all over the world, they're talking about it, right? I even called my mom. Before I can get a word off, she's like, did you hear Rubashkin? I'm like, of course. What do you mean? I'm firsthand. So it was amazing. And all the Jews in the prison were so happy. So happy. A couple of the guys were dancing in there too. It was the best day. And not only that, it did something, probably for the people who were free too, it did something to everybody's emunah and betachin. It strengthened us so much.
All the things he said came true.
Yeah, it came true. You see a guy who's saying every single day. And the last day of Hanukkah, the last few minutes of Hanukkah left, he went home. It was unbelievable.
But you lost your chavrusa.
But I lost my chavrusa, yes.
And how many years after that were you still there for?
So I was there for 5 years.
After Rubashkin left?
Yes.
Was that tough for you?
It was tough. I was very depressed. I was happy that he was home, obviously. But to lose something like that, it's very, very difficult. And that was, I believe, like my first test of faith, right? So I was by myself for a little bit learning. I understood how to learn now a little bit. He taught me a lot. And then throughout the process, the last 5 years, I would pick up different chavrusas, and then they would go home. I would be with, there's somebody, Rabbi Goldstein. He got out of prison a couple years ago. He was in for the get thing. I don't know if you guys know about that. And then, I would be by myself for a little bit, still learning, every day learning Gemara, Musar, Chumash, Rashi, learning Hebrew, just constantly doing everything I can to keep this up, right?
You became from in prison.
Yes, I became from in prison. Yes, 100%. It was through that I became from. It was, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm speechless.
Yeah.
Not a good place to be as a podcast host. Wow. So
I could tell you too, there's another person that was very instrumental for me, Rabbi Mordechai Samit from Satmar. We actually started studying together in 2019. And we learned together for a year. Every single day we were learning Gemara. And this is also a person similar to Rubashkin who had so much emunah, so much, right? Where he's constantly saying the same thing, that we can go home any second. This is a person who did 19 and a half years in prison. He was sentenced to 27 years, right? Same thing, same emunah, right? And you know, you brought up before how like visitors would come to see Rubashkin and they could see the sincerity, right? But is it the same when they leave?
Yeah.
And I could tell you it is, right? For Rubashkin and for Rabbi Samit, you look into their eyes and it's a sincerity that doesn't go away. It's a real sincerity, right? About having faith that Hashem put me here, not the judge, not anybody else. So I would learn with him for a year, and he really, really helped me, because at the end of the day, it's all about emunah. That's what it's all about. Because if you have faith in Hashem, you know that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, then you can have thoughts of peace and happiness and clarity, and then you're able to learn, you're able to move forward in life and to grow. But if you don't have faith, then you're sad and depressed. And it's in a place like prison, that's the last place that you want to be sad and depressed.
It's interesting. You know, you mentioned the authenticity,
yes,
sincerity,
yes,
that doesn't go away when the visitor leaves the prison. And it's reminding me of a similar contrast. You know, Hollywood is a place where when the lights are on and the camera's rolling, everything looks incredible. Whether it's, you know, the joyous parts or the sad and the dramatic, and those emotions that are elicited in those scenes are so vividly on display from Hollywood. It's remarkable, and it moves people to laugh and it moves people to tears, and it's amazing. But then the director yells, "Cut!" and then like the whole facade just crumbles.
Yeah.
And like you can meet even like an actor outside of, you know, when he's on set, when he or she's on set, and like they're like different people. Like they're completely different people from the character that they're portraying.
Yes.
And that's a skill, of course, and it's wonderful. But it's so disappointing sometimes when you meet someone that you look up to, and then like you see the real person, and then you meet people that are really, really big. And this, like without exception, I think exists in people that work on themselves, people that have the light of the Torah permeating their entire existence. And with them, it doesn't matter where you meet them. It doesn't matter if they're in the middle of a speech or if they're sitting in their prison cell. It's that same authentic reality of their neshama just on fire.
Definitely. Yeah. And this is what I saw from Rabbi Samit, Rabbi Rubashkin, you know, and it taught me a lot, you know, because once those prison doors lock, once you're in there, you know, there's no faking after that. It's really, it's time to apply that faith that you say that you have. It's time to apply, you know, you say, I believe in God, you know, can you do that in a prison cell? That's the true test. When nobody's watching, that's a true test.
What was your parents' reaction? I imagine they were hearing that you were becoming religious, or you become religious. You're wearing tefillin, you're keeping Shabbos. What was their reaction to this?
Baruch Hashem, I'm lucky that they had no opposition, and they were very happy. Actually, today my mom keeps a kosher kitchen, something that we never did growing up, which is insane.
And she's still in Nevada?
Yes, she's still in Nevada. Yes, and you know, she was very happy. She was happy that, you know, her son's not a drug addict or criminal anymore, so I could have been anything at this point. But she was just so happy that this is what I chose to do, you know, and especially my dad too, telling me growing up, you know, make sure you marry a Jewish girl. You know, now he can see that that's my aspiration.
Rest assured, yeah.
Yes, that, but I can't say that that was the case 10 years ago, But
you mentioned 2019 so that's awfully close to COVID years. And,
yes.
And you were in prison through COVID.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
So COVID in prison was the worst. It was terrible. So we were first locked down in our cells. We had an 8 by 11 foot cell, if you can imagine what that looks like. We were locked in for 2 weeks, April 1st.
24 hours a day. 24
hours a day. We only got out to take a shower, make a quick phone call and a quick email Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we had 3 hours a week out of the cell. Other than that, locked in, completely quiet.
Gosh.
Yes. And, we were thinking maybe after 2 weeks of being locked down, it would let us out after that. Maybe COVID wouldn't be that bad. Obviously, it became terrible.
Yeah.
Were you informed and aware of what was going on?
So I had a radio.
Okay.
But the prison system was very bad at informing us. It was very quiet in there. You didn't hear, it's like they left us in there completely. Even the first day that they locked us in, because it could do something to a person psychologically to be locked in for that, even 2 weeks.
165 hours straight. Yeah. Like that's what you're looking at.
For sure.
That's crazy.
So the prison psychologist came by all the doors the first day that we were locked in. And he said, I will be here every day to check in on you guys. That was the last the day that we saw him ever again. So we were stuck in there.
And the guards for themselves were worried also. They wanted to stay safe.
Exactly.
So how long was it like that for in prison?
So after the 2-week lockdown, they slipped a piece of paper under our door. I don't remember the exact time that it said on there, but basically on the paper it said you guys are locked down for another few months or something like that.
Gosh.
Same conditions, 24 hours a day, 3 days a week to shower, phone call, and email. That's it. So when I saw that, I was devastated, because beforehand prison wasn't so bad. You get to get out, sunlight, fresh air. Now we're stuck.
Now it's prison.
Yeah, exactly. So it was very hard. Very, very hard.
How do you get through those days?
So I do have an interesting story that happened to me over there. After those 3 months, so we had a 2-week lockdown, turned into a 3-month lockdown, and then they slipped another piece of paper on the door, which turned into another 2 months. So it was about 5 months of straight lockdown.
How many hours is that, Momo? Just curious if you know.
It's a lot of hours. Oh. Maybe 1,000.
Aki was doing some hours math before?
Yeah.
You said 5 months it is?
Aki has this thing on his phone. It's called a calculator.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
5 months times 4, that's 20 weeks.
It gives him a tremendous amount of computing capabilities.
Yeah. 3 hours, 3,360 hours.
Wow.
A lot of freaking hours.
That's crazy. So the way that I got through it, I kept to my routine. I would wake up in the morning, I would daven, I would study, I would work out. But I won't lie to you. It was very difficult. I almost didn't know how to deal with it. I would be walking back and forth. Thank God I didn't go crazy during that time, because you can really go crazy, even spending a day locked down like that. So after the second slip that they put on their door, we're already locked in for 3 months already. And they're saying another 2 months you're locked in. I remember that night I prayed. I opened my book for my Siddur, for Maariv, and I was pouring tears, crying my eyes out, because I felt like it wasn't going to end. How many slips are they going to put under the door? How long is this going to last? I had another 2 or 3 years left in prison. I couldn't imagine spending 2 more years locked up. And from what you're hearing on the news, it looked like COVID was never going away, right?
Wow.
So I'm crying badly, right? Praying to Hashem. And I asked Hashem to, obviously to help me during these times. Give me the strength to get through this, right? And, give me good thoughts, because that's a big thing for me, is to think positive thoughts. But this is on a whole nother level, you know what I mean? So the next morning, it was Shabbat, Saturday morning. I had my Shabbat table all prepared. We always made sure to, make the separation. So we have Shabbat. I put a white sheet over the table over there. I made my meals. Did a Shabbat as best as I could in there. I remember I'm eating the second meal for Shabbat in the morning. And I'm still very messed up. I have a lot of anxiety. I have a lot of depression, anger, all these thoughts, bad thoughts bubbling. I'm on the brink of losing it here. But after eating the meal on Shabbat, I had two beautiful thoughts that came to my head out of nowhere. And the first thought was that I am exactly, not just me, but every person is exactly where Hashem wants them to be. So if I'm sitting in this prison cell, whether it be another 3 months or another day, it's exactly where Hashem wanted me to be. So with that thought, I was like, wait a sec, I'm studying all these Musar books on faith and trust in Hashem. So what, now that it gets hard, I'm not supposed to apply it? Now that I'm in a prison cell, I'm not supposed to apply it? Because I'm in solitary confinement, we don't have to believe in God now. So these are the thoughts that I was thinking. And I was happy. My sadness turned to happiness, right?
Wow.
Another thing that happened, the other thought, which I think is stronger than the first. So after that 3-month lockdown, yes.
You flippantly characterize it as not as strong as what you're about to say.
Yeah.
But dude, that is...
Yeah, it's deep. Yeah.
It's extremely deep.
Yes.
And it's so much the avodah that people struggle with on a day-to-day basis. Because there's some circumstance, some difficulty, some mania that pulls us away from the focus of we are exactly in the situation, we're exactly the position that Hashem has designed for us. And it could be as simple as not finding a parking spot. It can be as simple as something that you're working on in your office, in work. It could be something as halig as you can't figure out what Tosfos is trying to say, and we get frustrated.
Yes.
And we lose sight of how we are exactly where we're supposed to be. And for you to have that revelation and clarity in those circumstances is truly astonishing.
Yes. It was a big blessing at the time. The second thought, maybe it's not, I don't know, you guys will be the judge if it's stronger. But after that 3-month lockdown, there was a chance that the piece of paper that was slipped under the door would have said, okay, tomorrow you guys are getting out, right? So I held on to that thought. It gave me a lot of hope. But the problem is I was expecting that would happen, right? That was the problem. So I realized because of my expectation that we would eventually get off of the lockdown, get some fresh air. When I saw that it was the opposite of that, I was plagued with devastation like no other. So I realized that as a Jew, we cannot expect what's going to happen the next day, a year from now, even 10 seconds from now. We have no idea what's going to happen. And we see that what's going on just happened in Israel. It's the same thing. We had no idea that was going to happen. So because I expected that we would get off the lockdown, I was devastated. So I realized in that moment, we cannot, as a Jewish, religious, faith-having person, we can't think what's going to happen tomorrow. We can't expect what's going to happen. Only what Hashem gives us. Only where Hashem puts us. So with that thought in mind, I was able to, it did something to me where I was able to, the past few months, the trauma from that I was able to heal from that trauma, and I was able to go forward with whatever was ahead. It was still hard. I'm not going to lie and be like, I turned into this big emunah person, but it was such a strong thought that it helped me. That's something, a tool that I now had to go forward with whatever was ahead.
Incredible. I mean,
yes.
You mentioned at that point there's 2 years left in your sentence, and take us through, I guess, leaving prison. What was that like? So we were still dealing with COVID up until I left prison. So the lockdowns would get less and less and less. It was never back to normal, right? And there was always the chance that if somebody got sick, immediately back in your cell for like another 3 weeks, right? So that was constantly a worry that I had in my mind, right? But I kept it up. I actually ended up getting a learning partner, Rabbi Yedidia Aryeh, every day.
15 minutes on the phone. We were learning for the last 2 years that I was in prison.
What a yid.
Yes.
What a yid.
He's very special. And I want to share a quick story with him that I just found out about. I would call him every day. Like I said, 15 minutes a day, we would learn. I called him one time and he was just about to go under the chuppah for his son's marriage. He still answered the phone just to give me chizuk, right? And he said, I have to go marry off my son, but he answered the phone, which was amazing. And he just wanted, he felt that if he didn't answer, I would be sad, and
it's remarkable.
Yes.
Today, I'll just share it. Today happens to be
Why
studio day.
Why we're smiling?
Yeah. We're smiling because that's incredible. And I happen to know Rabbi Aryeh, and he's a remarkable yid and Talmud Chacham, incredible person.
Yes.
And today's studio day, which means that we record multiple episodes on the same day. And a few hours ago, someone sat in the chair you're sitting in and shared with us that there was a woman who inspired her to build the organization that she is building and to do the work that she's doing. And literally almost with the same words shared that she called her and she picked up the phone and was at her daughter or child's wedding.
Her daughter's wedding, yeah.
Daughter's wedding.
That's amazing.
And these are the people that we have in Klal Yisrael.
She said, is it urgent? And she said, no, not really. He's like, okay, I'm by my daughter's wedding. And you just literally said like the same exact thing.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Wow. That's just what we're going through today.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Amazing. Yeah.
It just shows you that there's no, and he's not the only person. I mean, I used to have rabbis come to visit me in prison a lot. People that I didn't even know. And they show you so much love. There's no people like the Jewish people.
But it's indicative in the results. The way you produce such great people is when we as a people are so invested in other people's success and how much we care and our devotion to this common cause of just Knesset Yisrael. And it comes with that dedication.
Yes. It's amazing.
Yes.
What was the day like you got out of prison?
So the night, I'll tell you the night before, I couldn't sleep. I was so anxious. I was so nervous. I was so happy. I had every thought, every emotion bubbling that you could imagine, right? So I got a knock at the door at like 5 a.m, right? And the officer, he knocked on the door. He said, Balva, you ready? It's time to go, right? And I'm a very strong believer now today that everything that a person hears and sees is from Hashem, right? So when he knocked on the door and said, Balva, are you ready? He was saying to me, are you ready to go home? But I thought in my head at that moment, this is like Hashem telling me, okay, you just went through all these years of prison. Are you now ready to come out into the world where there's challenges everywhere? In prison, it's just the challenge of getting through a tough day over there, these very difficult days. But now the Yitzhak Hara is everywhere over here in the real world. Are you ready for that?
Wow.
And, I said, in my mind, yes, after everything I just been through, so the day I got out, my mom picked me up. She flew all the way from Las Vegas with my 2 little brothers, gave them big hug. It was like an embrace, like right out of the movies. It was crazy. I went and prayed at a shul in Monroe, actually, because Monroe is very close to the prison. I did the prayer Birkat Hagomel. Yeah. When you get out of prison or difficult situation, I think there's like 4 things that you say the prayer for. It was amazing. Then I went to the airport and there was like 40 people there to greet me. Wow. Right. I had a lot of pen pals that I had while I was incarcerated. Very good people. Very, very good people. Some people from Lakewood. There's a rabbi from BMG, Rabbi Koslowitz. He was there with his whole family. It was.
But you're not allowed to see, like Rubashkin wasn't allowed to come visit you? No. That's so tough.
Yeah.
You guys, I mean, no, I'm not going to ask if you speak. Never mind. Do what you got to do.
Yes.
That's really amazing.
And then I headed back to Las Vegas where I would spend, it wasn't over yet because I had to spend a year in a halfway house. Mm-hmm. And the halfway house is, I don't know if you guys know, it's basically, it's still a form of prison, but you can go out during the day, you can work, you can go to shul. And that's what I did.
Probationary
It's like parole.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
It's very similar. And that's what I did for that year. I went to shul every morning, and then I went at night. I worked throughout the day. I just, I experienced freedom,
And how long ago was that till from today?
So that was February 18th of this year. I just finished with the halfway house.
Mazel tov.
Yes, thank you.
This is like fresh.
This is fresh. This is fresh. I'm still feeling it for sure. I'm still in shock.
Like, I'm honored. Like, one of your first stops out of the halfway house is this podcast. Like, hello there. That's
Where are you
awesome.
living these days?
So I'm living in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Nice.
Still. I'm still on probation. But I do plan on moving back east over here because this is where
You know where Rabbi Ira lives.
Yes.
He's looking for a nice Jewish girl.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
Yes. So I want to come out here because in Las Vegas we have a beautiful community over there, but it's not the same like New York and New Jersey. I want to be back immersed like I was when the first day that I got to Otisville, even though there was only 15 other Jews over there. That was strong enough for me. I need to be back in the immersion, Yes.
Shawn Balva.
Yes.
What a yid.
Yes.
You really you went through hell. And you came out the other end.
Yes.
From Jew.
Yes.
That's epic.
Ashrecha.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for telling us your story. Obviously, there's a book that people can pick up. Any other Judaica stores. It's called Conviction. This is
I love the double meaning
Yes.
of the title.
Conviction.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good stuff. I get it now. Also, the people can follow you on Instagram, right?
Yes.
You're on Instagram. You're active. Anything else you want to tell the people who are listening to this podcast?
Yes. It's very important. Just a quick message.
Sure.
Once we're here,
Yes.
may as well.
It's very important it sounds so cliche in our world now, and it sounds so simple, but we really need to have emunah and bitachon constantly. And it's something that we need to work on constantly, that wherever we are, whatever situation we're in, whether it's in pain or in riches or, whatever it may be, wherever we're at, we have to believe that we're exactly where Hashem wants us to be and that he's going to take care of us. This is so important for a Jew to internalize and to meditate on and to really turn it into his whole being, their whole being, that, we have to have faith in Hashem, especially during these times. And, it's an honor for me to be here. Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
It's our honor.
Yes.
Thank
you,
Shawn.
brother.
Thank you.
Really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Meaningful People podcast. Yes, Shawn Balva actually wrote a book about his story. It's called Conviction. You can buy this book at ShawnBalva.com. The link is in the show notes in the description of this episode. We'll be giving out 3 books to you. If you comment on this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel, we will be giving out a book. So nice chances. 3 of you are going to be winners. So make sure to leave a comment on our YouTube channel. Leave a comment on this YouTube video below in the comments. Leave a message for Shawn. He will see it. A message of strength, chizuk, and we will be selecting winners this week on Thursday. So stay tuned for that, and we'll announce the winners on next week's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Meaningful People podcast. We have so many new subscribers, thank God, here on YouTube. I think we're at 145,000. Baruch Hashem. Want to give a big hello to all of you, all you new peeps. Welcome to our channel, and take a look around. There's so many episodes that maybe you haven't listened to already, and just, check them out. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will speak to you again next week. Adios.